on to lecture 34. So we have started with the network functions, where we have seen that network function can be categorized into driving point impedance and transfer function, or I will call driving point emittance and transfer function. Driving point emittance is that where we are evaluating at only one same pair of terminal, and transfer function is that where we are evaluating the response, that is the output response, and with the excitation, that is the ratio of Laplace transform of response to the Laplace transform of excitation. If we are taking with two different terminals, then that kind of whatever we will obtain, that network function defined as transfer function. And also we seen that if we will take it at from same terminal, then I will assume it as a driving point emittance, and it can be categorized into driving point impedance and driving point admittance. That's why the name it is driving point emittance. Okay. And next we have seen that transfer function also can be divided into or categorized into three ways. One was there the transfer function impedance or impedance transfer, then there was the admittance transfer, and then there was a dimensionless. And here dimensionless, that can be defined as a voltage ratio transfer function and current ratio transfer function. Okay. And also then what we said, we now know that network function is defined as the Laplace transform of the response to the Laplace transform of excitation, with assumption that my network or circuit is initially relaxed. Okay, this is basically the condition. Then also we have seen that the network function which we will define, that has to be real and it has to be rational. What is rational? It is to be the ratio of polynomial in numerator and denominator, right? Polynomial. And what is polynomial? It is a finite series which is having the integral positive power of variable. And what is real? The real polynomial is that where the coefficients are real, by the way, for that particular variable. Okay. Then we have defined that what is the meaning of the strictly proper transfer function and proper transfer function and improper transfer function, where strictly proper transfer function is that where the number of or the degree of numerator, if it is less than degree of numerator, where assume that m is the degree of numerator, n is the degree of denominator. If this is the case, then that kind of network function we defined as the, say I have two polynomials, the ratio of two polynomials p of s and q of s. Suppose m is the degree of numerator and n is the degree of denominator. And if I am saying that if the degree of numerator is less than degree of denominator, then it is strictly proper transfer function. Then next, if the m is equal to n, then it is proper transfer function. This is strictly proper transfer function. This is proper transfer function. And if the degree of numerator is greater than n, then it was improper transfer function, right? And we have also defined that some polynomial I will get it in numerator, some polynomial I will get in denominator, and that I can express as the running roots, say s minus zi and over product of j for s minus all pj's. Okay. And then we have defined what is the meaning of zeros and poles. Zeros are the values of s for which your network function will become 0, and the poles are the values of s for which your network function will blow off or it will become infinite. That way we have defined the poles and zeros. Okay. Now with this, the information which we have now related with the poles and zeros, now what we'll do, we will see next the behavior of second order circuit. Behavior of, say, basically this we have seen, but now I would like to see the behavior of this by the concept of poles and zeros. Okay. So this is the behavior of second order circuit, and which is related to S-plane. Okay. Related to S-plane, and where the related to S-plane means how is the response of the second order system, which will be based on the location of poles. Okay. So here what we'll do, we will see the response of second order circuit based on the poles of the characteristic equation. So for that, let me take my series RLC circuit, which is R, L, and let's say the output I will take it across C. Okay. This already we have defined this, or we have seen also. And say this is my forced function or excitation, say u of t. This is R, L, and C, and if I would like to measure the voltage across C. Okay, so for that we seen that we have written the equation L di by dt plus Ri plus 1 over c integral of I dt dt, which will be equal to excitation, suppose u of t, and then from that we have defined the characteristic equation by differentiating one more time, because I don't want integral. So if you differentiate it, we'll get it the characteristic equation, and let me write that characteristic equation in operator domain, which is p square with some resubstitutions r by l p, this already we have obtained, plus 1 over lc, which is equal to 0. If it is the characteristic equation, then we what we thought, we say that the characteristic equation should be equal to 0. Okay, now let us define the roots of it. So what are the roots will be? The roots here will be S12, or let me define P12, there will be two roots as it is a second order. So it will be minus r upon 2l plus minus square root of r square over 4l square minus 1 over lc. And from that, what we have defined, let us define the critical resistance here, because from here we can decide the roots or the behavior of the response. Okay, so this critical resistance will define the behavior of second order circuit, and it will be what, let me calculate critical resistance, so which is 4 upon 4 r square upon 4l square, which is 1 over lc, and from that let me define r, which is critical resistance, will be 2 into square root of l upon c. Fine. Now with this, let us define two more new terms in this. Let me introduce two more new terms, which generally now we will encounter frequently during the analysis. So one is called as zeta, and second is called as your omega n. So zeta is your damping factor ratio, and which is a dimensionless basically, and omega n is your undamped natural frequency. It is undamped natural frequency. And now let me define the zeta. So zeta basically it is the ratio of the actual resistance to the critical resistance, and this, how can we define, this is my critical resistance, so it will be r by 2 over c upon l as critical resistance in denominator part, that's why it become like this. Okay, and now let me define the natural frequency omega n. So omega n will be 1 over square root of lc. If this is the case, then omega n square I can write as 1 over lc. Okay, now let me define the term 2 zeta into omega n. So if I'll substitute everything here, so 2 zeta is r upon 2 into square root of c upon l into omega n, which is 1 over square root lc. So what will happen, this c will get it cancelled, l will come out, 2 will vanish. So what is the resultant? Resultant will be r by l. Okay, so with this, now what I can write, my characteristic equation, which I have been written in the Laplace in the operator domain, that is p square upon r by l p plus 1 over lc equal to 0, which was previously, that now I can write in terms of zeta and omega, and basically this was my aim. So p square, or let me write in p square is what, okay, suppose p square plus r by l will be now what, r by l I will replace by 2 zeta omega n p plus what is next, it is 1 over lci, so it will be p square I plus this and 1 over lci. So 2 zeta omega n p I, this is p square I plus omega n square I, that is equal to 0. Okay, now this introduction of two terms, that is zeta and omega n, they are useful to interpret the geometry of the root locations in S-plane. Okay, and in addition they have the significance in order to understand the response of second order circuit. Okay, so again let me define one more quantity, that is called as figure of merit, which is the Q, circuit Q. Okay, and this is in RLC circuit. Q is defined as omega n into ratio of L by R. So this I can define as QR is equal to omega n into L. Okay, and then R by L will be equal to omega n upon Q. So using this also I can write the second order equation a characteristic equation in terms of figure of merit also. So p square I plus what will be now, instead of r by l, it will become omega n by q. Okay, so it will be omega n upon q into I plus omega n square I. So these are the various ways by which I can define the characteristic equation. Now let me relate the something related with the q and zeta. Okay, so here what I observe, 2 zeta omega n, whereas here and here it is omega n q, so that is 2 zeta omega n, if it is equal to omega n upon q, so what this will be vanished. So what I can write as figure of merit, which I can also express in terms of zeta. So q will be equal to also 1 over zeta. Now with this, let me now look into the S domain behavior of it. So instead of now operator domain, let me go it into the S square. So I'll take it the Laplace of that equation, and let me express as S square plus this equation. I'll take it, okay, in terms of zeta and omega. So it will be 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square, that is equal to 0. Now let us look at this characteristic equation in S domain. So from that, let me find out what are the poles and zeros. So what will be the poles? Basically characteristic equation give me the poles. Okay, so it will be minus b plus minus b square. So it will be 4 zeta square omega n square minus 4a into c, that is omega n square, divided by 2a. So then this I can simplify as 2 will get it cancelled, so it will be minus zeta omega n plus omega n square. I will take it outside, 2 will take it common, so this 2 will get it cancelled, so it will be plus minus omega n square root of zeta square minus 1. Okay, so now these are my roots, and these are the characteristic equation, and we know the roots of characteristic equations are nothing but the poles of that particular network function. Okay. Now look this equation very carefully. Now got the behavior of, again, the second order system depends on the poles of the system, and if I am seeing the poles, again the poles or the nature of the poles will vary, because here again square root came. So the response of the second order system again heavily depends on this value, that is zeta. Okay. So now let us define how can we do that. So there may be the 4 situations. What will be first situation? When what happened if zeta is greater than 1? So if zeta will be greater than 1, then what will be my poles? Poles will be minus zeta omega n plus minus omega n square root of zeta square minus 1. It will be as it is, and here it will be the poles are real and distinct. Okay, so the poles and real and distinct, I will get it in exponential form, and that kind of behavior is basically called as overdamped behavior, or the response, which if I will get it this way, for zeta greater than 1, this is the response, named it as overdamped response. Okay. Now second situation, what if my zeta is equal to 1? Okay, so if zeta equal to 1, what are the roots? Roots will become simply real and repeated minus zeta omega n. So here it will be real and repeated, and in this situation the response called as critically damped response. Okay, so here poles will lie on the real axis, critically damped the response. Now next, third is zeta is less than 1. This is very important. If zeta is less than 1, then what will happen? Now the roots will become imaginary, and the roots are becoming imaginary means now I'll get it the pair of complex conjugate. Okay, so in this case your roots will be complex conjugate, and let me write that roots p1 2. If zeta is less than 1, then I can slightly modify this by putting j, so minus zeta omega n plus minus j omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. Okay, so that j indicate that this is my imaginary root, and I slightly modified this. Okay, so in this situation the roots are complex conjugate pair, and if this is the thing, then the response is underdamped behavior or underdamped response. Okay, and for situation we can say that if zeta, what will be zeta is equal to 0. So if zeta is equal to 0, then what happened? Zeta, if it is equal to 0, then your roots will be there will be no real root. Now roots will be purely imaginary. So what will be the roots? Roots will be plus minus j into omega n, and in this there will be no this thing damping, so it will be undamped behavior. Okay, so means the response is oscillatory response, and here what will happen? It will damp sinusoidal response. Okay, that already we have seen. Okay, now let us take the critical situation. Critical situation means important situation, which is if the poles are complex conjugate. Then how to do that? Okay, so let me take it the poles which are say minus zeta omega n plus minus j omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. So let me draw it in S plane. So this I know it is a real part, and this I know it is your imaginary part. So let me draw it on the S plane. So if I am drawing it on the S plane, it looks like this. Okay, this is S domain, where the x-axis is your real axis and this is your imaginary axis is this y-axis. Okay, now let me take any arbitrary pole location here. So this, if this is pole location here, what will happen? It has to be complex conjugate. Why complex conjugate? Because with this only I'll get it the real coefficients. Okay, and what will be this part and what will be this part? Basically this length will be minus zeta omega n, as it is the real part, we can say this. Okay, and what about this part? This part or this length will be omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. It is the imaginary component. Okay, so with this what will happen? I can create the right angle triangle like this. Okay, and suppose this is my theta. Okay, which will be the angle made with the negative real axis. Fine. So now what is this? This length is minus zeta omega n. This is omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square. So if I want this, how much will be this? So this can be written as the hypotenuse square. Okay, so real part square is zeta square omega n square plus imaginary part square, it is omega n square into 1 minus zeta square. So if I'll solve it, will be like this. This will get it cancelled. So what will be this? This will be omega n square and square root. So this particular thing will be omega n, which is natural frequency. Okay. So now this is omega n, or here also if I'll plot for the conjugate pair, this is also omega n. Fine. Now if I'll do the real part square sigma square plus imaginary part square omega square, so what I'll get it? Zeta square omega square plus omega n square minus omega n square zeta square, that already we did. Okay, this is zeta square basically. Okay, so zeta square omega square plus omega n square minus omega n square zeta square. So what will be real part and imaginary part? It will be omega n square. Okay, so what we can say about it? So we can say that the locus of the roots in the complex S plane, which is the S plane, this is my S plane, in the complex S plane is a circle. Okay, and is a circle of how much is the radius? So radius will be omega n. Okay, so this way we can define it. Okay, so the locus of the roots in the complex S plane is a circle of radius omega n. Okay, and this locus is formed by varying the value of zeta. Okay, and zeta will generally vary from 0 to 1, how it is. Okay, so let us let me draw it on one more diagram on the S plane only. So suppose this is my complex S plane. Okay, so say this is my S plane, its real part is sigma and imaginary part is j omega. Okay, so suppose I have the pole locations of the second order system like this. Here one pole, if one pole is on j omega, so obviously other pole on minus j omega, because it's a pair. Okay, now if this is the situation, if my pole locations are like this, so in this situation what is the value? Value will come, that poles will come only when the value of damping factor zeta will be equal to 0. Okay, now let me vary with the locus, and let me draw something that's as a radius, as this much is my radius, and let me draw the circle like this. Okay, not properly drawn, but assume that it is circle. And what is the length or radius will be omega n. Okay, now let me slightly change the pole location. So instead of here, let me put it somewhere here. Okay, so what will happen if it is here, then there will be complex conjugate like this. Okay, sorry, here. Okay, now again if I slightly vary, it will be here, then its conjugate pair will be like this. If my location here is, conjugate pair will be like this. If this location is here, pole location here, conjugate pair will be like this. Okay, if this is the case, it will lie here. If this is the situation here like this, it will come that way. Then what will happen? Repeated roots, and then they will scattered here and here. Okay, like this. Here. Okay, so how the pole location is varying? By which factor? The pole locations are varying by the pole location. These locations are changing by varying the parameter zeta. Okay, so if zeta is equal to 0, I'll get it the pole location like this, as we have seen on imaginary axis. Now if zeta is less than 1, then where will be my pole locations? My poles will be complex conjugate, and this is the portion, basically this is the portion where I'll get the pole locations, which will be complex conjugate. Similarly here also, and in this situation, what will be the value of zeta? Zeta will be less than 1. Now when zeta is equal to 1, then what will happen? I'll get it the two poles which will be real and repeated, that we have seen it. And now if this let me draw this locations will be when zeta is equal to 1, and when it will be only the poles will be real and distinct. At that time, what will happen with the value of zeta? Zeta is greater than 1. Okay, so basically this is the behavior of second order circuit. Okay, when the pole locations are going to change it. And mind you, also we have also already discussed, in order to have the circuit stable, what should be the location of poles? The location of poles has to lie on the closed left half of S plane. So if pole location will lie here, then what will happen? My circuit will become unstable, that we have seen. So again, constraint on that your poles or pole locations must have to lie on the left hand side of S plane, including j omega axis also. Okay, so now if let's say this is my pole location, so with this what can happen? I can make it this angle, and let me call this angle is equal to theta. Fine, and then I can also write if my cos theta, what will be my cos theta? Cos theta will be zeta omega n square root of omega n into 1 minus zeta square. Yes, if I draw this way, this is my zeta omega n, and this is my omega n, not omega n square. Hypotenuse is omega n, right? So my hypotenuse is omega n. This is length is zeta omega n minus. So what will be the cosine angle? If this angle is theta, it will be zeta omega n upon omega. So this will be again zeta. So I can again define the relation between zeta with angle theta made from the negative real axis, which will be zeta is equal to cos theta. And what will be theta? Theta is equal to cos inverse of zeta. Okay. So location of poles will be generally specified by two parameters. One is omega n and zeta, where omega n is your radius and cos inverse zeta is the angle which is measured with respect to negative real axis also. Okay. Now this way we can predict the behavior of response based on the value of zeta. Okay. Now what are the general solution in terms of zeta and omega n? Let me write that also. So what is my general solution? General solution in terms of zeta and omega n, let me write. Okay, so first, when roots are real and distinct, what will be my solution? Solution will response is my I of t basically. So it is simple, real and distinct, so it will be k1 e raised to minus zeta omega n plus omega n square root of zeta square minus 1t plus k2 e raised to minus zeta omega n minus omega n square root of zeta square minus 1 t. This is first thing. What if zeta is less than or zeta is equal to 1? Let me write for second situation. If zeta is equal to 1, then what will be the roots? Roots will be real and distinct. So it will be only rely on the real and not distinct, real and repeated. Okay. So in this case, what will be I of t, that we have seen if roots are repeated and real, it will be k1 into k2t e raised to minus zeta omega nt, which is my critically damping behavior. This is my over damped behavior. Okay, this is my critically damped behavior. Then third, if zeta is less than 1, then we know it roots will occur in conjugate pair, and what will be the response? Response will be I of t is equal to e raised to minus zeta omega nt into k1 e raised to j omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square t plus k2 e raised to minus j omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square into t. So if you solve, we can express this in terms of sum k into e raised to minus zeta omega nt into sine of omega n square root of 1 minus zeta square t plus theta. Okay, so this will be my underdamped response or underdamped behavior. And what about fourth case? If zeta is equal to 0, how will be the response? Response will be simple, k1 e raised to j omega n t plus k2 e raised to minus j omega n t. If you solve, so you will be purely sinusoidal behavior, so it will be purely oscillatory response, right? Okay, so this is basically the behavior of the second order circuit based on the pole locations. Okay, now next what we'll do, we'll start with the frequency response. Now we are very much familiar with the poles and zeros, its network functions, what are the driving point impedance, transfer function impedance, transfer function current ratio, voltage ratio, and how to find out the behavior, or how to tell the how to analyze the behavior of second order system based on zeta and omega n. So we also know the two terms now, what is your undamped natural frequency and what is the damping factor ratio. Okay, so with this now, and again we say that restrictions on pole must have to lie on the closed half left hand side of S plane. Okay, now suppose in order to see the frequency response, basically what is to be done for the frequency response? Yeah, so frequency response will be applicable when I am interested to analyze the circuit in frequency domain. Okay, so at that time the frequency response plays a very important role. Okay? Yeah. So to define it, so what we said, suppose now I would like to evaluate the network function in frequency domain. So till now what we said, the network function was n of s. Okay, so this was in S domain, which was the polynomial ratio of polynomial in numerator and polynomial in denominator. And now this circuit, if I would like to evaluate in frequency domain, then what we would do, you simply replace s by j omega. So now this thing will become n of j omega, and now this is my frequency response. Okay, and if I will evaluate in frequency domain, then that is basically called as frequency response. Okay, now I am writing it in j omega domain. So what is my n of s? N of s will be now n of j omega, and now if this is the case, I should have two things or two terms will be your magnitude response or amplitude response, and next is phase response e raised to j into phi of omega. Okay, and this also we can differentiate, we can divide into two components, that is real part of n of j omega plus imaginary part of n of j omega. Okay, or I can also write how can you calculate the magnitude. So magnitude will be the square root of real part square plus imaginary part square, and if I would like to calculate what is my angle, n of j omega, which is phi of omega, so which I can calculate with tan inverse of imaginary part of the network function divided by the real part of network function. Okay, which will be my angle. Okay, and also generally what will happen, this magnitude response n of j omega is always even function. Okay, and your angle n of j omega will be always your odd function. Yes, so because if I have plotted omega with, this is my omega, and say magnitude response is like this. So if I plot and if I have the response like this for positive frequencies, it is even function, so it will be same for the negative frequencies. Okay, and now if I would like to draw the magnitude response, not the phase, not magnitude response, but phase response with respect to omega. Suppose I got it for this like this here. So for this it is the odd function, so I'll get it for the negative frequencies this way. Okay, so basically this way we can check it out, or we can calculate the magnitude response and phase response, and we know that the n of j omega can be that is the magnitude response will be the even function, and the phase response will be the odd function. Okay, now let us just quickly calculate the magnitude and phase response for simple RC circuit. So just calculate amplitude and phase response for RC circuit. Okay, so suppose this is the energy source I am applying to series RC circuit, and let me what we can say, let me evaluate in frequency domain, and let me see whether can I extract any additional information from it or not. Okay, so suppose this is my V0 and this is my V. Okay, so what will be the network function? Let me write the transfer function, that is the voltage ratio. So what will be V0 upon Vi of S? It will be simply 1 over RCS plus 1. Okay, this is in S domain. Okay, so now this is in S domain. Now I would like to evaluate in frequency domain. So what can be written? This, let me call the network function f of s, which will be RCS plus 1. Let me evaluate in frequency domain. So s will be replaced by j omega. So here also RC j omega plus 1. Then what I will do, I will find out what is my magnitude response f of j omega. So what is the magnitude response? It will be 1 over square root of r square c square omega square plus 1. And what is angle of f of j omega, which will be minus tan inverse of r c omega. Now let me see how it looks, the magnitude response and phase response. Okay, so if omega is equal to 0, what I'll get it? I'll get it, some depends on the value of r and c, 1 over square root of 1 plus r square c square. And as omega varies, what will happen? If omega tends to infinity, then magnitude will be 0. Okay, so roughly how can I say? At omega is equal to 0, I will have maximum magnitude, and as omega increases, your magnitude will be monotonically decreases. Okay, and if omega is equal to say 1 by RC, at this time what will happen? You will get it 1 by square root 2. Okay, so how will be the magnitude response? If I would like to plot the magnitude response for this RC circuit f of j omega, so what at omega is equal to 0, you will get it some magnitude. Okay, let me call this maximum magnitude m, and then as omega varies, it will be decreases monotonically, right? And omega tends to infinity, it will be tends to 0. Okay, and when omega is equal to 1 by RC, then what will happen? This will be 1 over square root of 2, and at some frequency, so let me define that frequency as omega c, basically, which is called as my cutoff frequency in general. Okay, so here we can observe that at omega is equal to 0, magnitude is, it is 1 simply. Why? Because now omega is equal to 0, so this part is totally 0. So how much is magnitude is? Now it is very simple, magnitude is 1, and as omega increases, the magnitude is decreases monotonically, and at omega is equal to omega c, that is when the magnitude is 1 by root 2, or when it is 0.707 of the maximum magnitude, that is 1, wherever it will cut on the response, that will be giving me the cutoff frequency, or this point basically is called as half power point. Okay, and similarly let me draw what is my phase response. So how will be the phase response? As omega is equal to 0, you will get it 0. Okay, as omega increases the response. Now let me calculate at omega is equal to 1 by RC, that is at omega is equal to omega C. So what will be the angle? Angle will be minus tan inverse of, yeah, here only. So when omega is 0, tan inverse of 0, so it will be starting from 0 and omega varies, and when omega is equal to 1 by RC, that is critical frequency, what is angle? Angle is minus 45 degree, and when omega is infinity, how much is angle? Angle is minus 90 degree. So what I can predict from it, that the phase response is starting from 0 at cutoff power point or cutoff frequency, my angle is minus 45 degree, and as omega increases it reaches to minus 90 degree. So let me draw like this. Okay, so this way I can draw. Okay, so this is basically my 45 degree minus 45 degree angle, and as it varies it will be minus 90 degree. Okay, basically there is some scaling factor that you can assume it. Okay. So the distance should be, this is 45 degree, and then it will be like this. Okay, now I think I have sufficient gap between minus 45 with 90 degree. Okay, so this way you can draw graphically also, and if you want to calculate analytically, you can vary the values of omega and you can plot the magnitude response and phase response. Okay, and you know at omega tends to infinity, your magnitude will be 0 and angle will be minus 90 degree. Okay, so from that what I can observe that my RC circuit will behave as a low pass filter. Here you can see this up to omega C will be my dominant frequency, and after that the frequency is decreasing. Okay, so how is the behavior of RC circuit? So if I work in frequency domain, again I can extract some more information from it. So suppose my VI is like this. Okay, so as you know, pulse, it will consist of the infinite frequencies as it is a sinc function, and if it is a low pass filter, what will happen? It will only allow the frequencies up to the frequency band 0 to omega C or up to bandwidth omega C. So what will be the output? Output will be only very smooth output you will get it, because high frequency, that is the jerk sort of thing, will removed out from the RC circuit. So RC circuit again will behave as the low pass filter. Fine. Okay, so this way you can calculate the magnitude response and phase response. Fine. So we stop here. From next class we will see the frequency response in detail. Thank you very much.